The alien girl breaks her tool, then borrows a human one. Rhea cursed under her breath as the handle of her plasma cutter snapped for the third time that week. Sparks flew as the blade fizzled out, dropping to the dusty ground with a quiet thud. Her four-fingered hands trembled with anger. Around her, the other alien workers from her crew glanced up but quickly looked away. No one wanted to deal with an angry engineer, especially not her. She stared at the broken tool in her hands. It was sleek, silver, and lightweight, standard issue on Zaraki mining ships. But it was useless now. Again, she growled and kicked. A rock. Stupid thing. Why can't they make tools that last? From behind her came a calm, quiet voice. Maybe you should try human tools. Treya turned fast, her golden eyes narrowing. Standing there in the heat was the human miner, Jack. He wiped sweat from his brow, leaning on a heavy, strange-looking tool. It looked like a drill butt, bulky, ugly, and ancient. She scoffed. That thing looks like it belongs in a museum. Jack shrugged. Maybe, but it still works. Treya rolled her eyes. Mine broke in less than 3 days. He smiled. I've used this one for 2 years. Same model, never failed. That made her pause. 2 years. She walked over and looked at the tool in his hand. The surface was scratched and blackened in places. The grip was rough, but it felt solid, heavy, strong, like it could crack a wall. May I? Try it, she asked, slowly. Jack handed it to her without hesitation. She took it hand, nearly dropped it. It was much heavier than her alien tools, but balanced. She squeezed the trigger, and the drill roared to life. Loud, unrefined, but powerful. She aimed it at a piece of ore, sticking out from the wall, and pressed. In less than 5 seconds, the rock shattered. Her jaw dropped. She turned to him. What is this thing made of? Jack laughed. Steel. Real old-school stuff. Steel, she repeated. That's primitive. Yeah, he said. But it works. That night, long after the shift ended, Treya couldn't sleep. Her bunk creaked as she tossed and turned. The image of the human tool drilling through rock kept playing in her mind. She'd spent years studying alien engineering. Sleek, light, fast, but fragile. Designed for function, not endurance. And yet, Jack's ancient tool worked better than anything she had ever used. The next morning, while others ate or rested, she walked toward the human sector of the camp. Past the metal gates, past the watchtowers, past the dusty warning signs. She stopped at the edge of a fenced area marked human supply, storage authorized only. She looked around. No one nearby. Her heart thumped in her chest. Quietly, she slipped inside. Rows of crates lined the floor. Some were labeled in faded Earth languages. She couldn't read them. She opened the first crate. Tools. All. Heavy, ugly, thick-handled. Nothing sleek or glowing like alien tech. But they gave off a strange feeling, like they had history, like they had been through fire and still kept going. She picked up a wrench. It was cool to the touch, worn but whole. No cracks, no energy cell, no advanced parts, just steel. What are you doing in here? The voice behind her made her jump. She turned quickly. Jack stood in the doorway, arms crossed. I wanted to see your tools, she admitted. Jack stepped inside. He didn't look angry, just curious. Why? She looked down. Because mine keep breaking, and yours don't. He nodded slowly, then pointed to the tool in her hand. That? One's older than I am. She blinked. What? It's true, he said. My grandfather used one like that on Earth. Humans build things to last. Our tools aren't pretty, but they survive. Treya held the wrench tighter. Her mind raced. Alien engineers would never keep a tool for decades. That was madness. Tools were made, used, and discarded. But maybe that was the problem. Jack walked over to a bench and picked up a small hammer. "Let me show you something." He placed a thick steel rod on the table and began to hammer. Slowly, carefully, each strike rang out like a bell. Sparks flew. The shape changed. She watched in silence. "See," Jack said, "when we make tools, we beat the metal until it's strong. We don't grow it in labs, we forge it." Treya's eyes widened. "You heard it, to make it better." He smiled. "Exactly." She stayed in the human storage room for hours that day. Jack showed her how to grip, swing, strike. She tried it herself. Her arms ached. Her fingers burned. But she didn't stop by the end of the day. She had reshaped a block of steel into something useful. Not perfect, not pretty, but strong. That night, she brought the wrench to her leader. She held it out with pride. He took one look at it, and his face went pale. "Where did you get this?" he asked in a low voice. "I made it," she said. "The human showed me how." His hands trembled. "This design, this shape. I've seen it before, during the old wars. The Terrans used them." Treya frowned. So he looked her in the eyes, because one human with a wrench like that took down an entire alien squad. She stared at him, then looked down at the tool in her hand, and smiled. Asterisk. The secret behind human steel. Treya stood in front of the human forge. Eyes wide, breath held. It looked like a furnace from an ancient time-open flame. Blackened bricks and metal rods glowing red from heat. The air was thick with smoke, hot like fire breath on her skin. She had never seen anything like it. "This is how you make tools?" she asked. Jack nodded, his arms folded as he stood beside the glowing coals. His shirt was damp with sweat, soot covering his hands. "No machines?" she asked again. "No auto press? No precision laser?" "Nope," he said with a grin. "Just fire, hammer, patience, and pain." She looked at him, confused. Pain. Jack picked up a thick bar of glowing metal with long tongs. Making things strong means hitting them, again and again. It's how we shape the steel. Break it, then shape it again. He placed a red-hot bar on an anvil. With both hands, he lifted a heavy hammer and slammed it down, clanged the sound. Shook her bones. He struck again. Clang, sparks flew like tiny stars around him. Raya blinked as the shape of the metal began to change. It was beautiful, not in the shiny, clean way of her people's tools, but in a rough, real way. The steel wasn't perfect, but it was strong like Jack. When he paused to rest, she asked, "Why do you do it like this? It's slow, it's hard. Why not use machines?" Jack looked up at her and smiled. "Because machines don't care. We do. Every hit I make, I feel it. I know this tool. I trust it. When you build something with your own hands, it means more." Treya didn't answer. She just watched. That night, she returned to her own workshop. She looked at the sleek alien tools lying on her workbench, cold, empty. They had no soul, no fire, no scars. She picked one up and dropped it back down to clean, to perfect, too weak. The next day, she returned to the forge. This time, she rolled up her sleeves. "I want to try," she said. Jack didn't laugh. He simply nodded, and so she began. At first, it was a disaster. She held the hammer wrong, dropped it twice, burned her hand when she touched the tongs. Her first steel bar bent like soft fruit. Her second cracked in half. But she didn't stop. Jack showed her again and again. "Hold here. Swing straight. Don't rush. Hours passed. Her arms ached. Her face was covered in soot. But by the end of the day, her steel piece was flat, solid, heavy, and whole. Not bad, Jack said. Next time, we shape it. Each day after that, she returned to the forge. She didn't care what the other aliens whispered. She was learning. She was building, and she was proud. One evening, she showed her leader the steel piece she had shaped. He frowned. You're wasting time. These are primitive toys, not real tools. She said nothing, but the next day, she took her new steel wrench and tested it on alien alloys, something even their cutters. Struggled with dot crack. The metal split in half like glass. She stared in shock. So did her fellow engineers. That's not possible, one muttered. But it had just happened. That same night, the alien scientists called her in. They wanted to see the tool. They placed it under scanners. It had no energy cells, no smart AI, no nano-tracking. Just pure steel. This thing shouldn't work better than ours, one of them said. It's just metal. Another tried to crush it in a machine press. The press screamed, but the tool didn't bend. Silence filled the lab. How is this possible? Someone whispered. Treya stood beside them, holding a hammer with burned gloves. She looked at the screen and then at them. You build tools to be smart, she said. Humans build tools to be strong, and when something breaks, they don't. Throw it away, they rebuild it, hammer it, make it better. One scientist leaned forward. Are you saying these tools survive because they've been through pain? She nodded. Yes. Just like the humans who made them. Back in the forge, Jack was working on another tool when Treya returned. She held up her latest piece of forged cloth spanner, thick and heavy. He whistled. Now that's a beauty. She smiled. Her hands were rough now, her arms stronger. She wasn't just copying humans anymore. She was learning from them. Jack, she said quietly, why don't you sell these tools to the other species in the galaxy? Jack chuckled. We did once, long ago. But they said our tools were ugly, too heavy, too simple. She looked down at the hammer she made. Maybe they were wrong. He looked at her, serious now. Maybe they were scared. Scared? Yeah, Jack said. Because when something looks simple but can't be broken, it reminds people how weak they are. Treya stared at the forge fire. The flames danced like living spirits. And inside them, she saw something she had never noticed. Before, the power of things that refused to break. And she knew. This was only the beginning. The alien scientists want answers. The test room was silent. Treya stood in the center, her forged wrench on a metal table. The alien scientists stood behind thick glass, whispering to each other. Machines hummed quietly. A single light above. The table made the steel tool shine. She had never been in this room before. Only top engineers and government minds came here. It was where impossible things were tested. And now her human-style tool was the impossible thing. One scientist, a tall male with green skin and 4 glowing eyes, tapped the screen nervously. It's just a wrench, he said. There's nothing special about it. Another nodded. Primitive design. No enhancements. No smart response systems. Nothing at all. But it cracked an alloy bar, the first one said. That's what we need to verify. They activated the pressure arm. The giant press slowly lowered itself onto the wrench. Treya held her breath. The steel tool didn't bend. The press pushed harder. The machine groaned. The wrench didn't move. The room filled with quiet tension. Then a loud alarm beeped. Pressure limit reached. The machine stopped. The wrench was still whole. A scientist dropped his tablet. That's not possible, someone said. Treya stepped forward. It is possible. Humans made it. The scientists looked at her with wide eyes. Some looked angry, others afraid. But how? One asked. It's just steel. She picked up the tool and held it tightly. It's forged, by hand, with fire and time. That gives it strength you can't measure. The head scientist, an old woman with pale skin and silver veins running through her arms, stepped forward. I want to run more tests. She ordered a strength comparison between human tools and the latest alien equipment. They brought out cutters, spanners, drills, all alien-made. Smooth, thin, full of blinking lights and whispering energy. Then they brought more human tools. Heavy, old-looking, rough, the testing began, in every round. The human tools lasted longer. In some tests, the alien tools failed immediately. Melted under heat, snapped under weight, glitched under cold. But the human tools, they just kept going. The room grew colder with each result. The head scientist finally stepped back. These tools, she said, were not built with speed or comfort in mind. No, Treya replied. They were built to survive. There was silence for a long time. Then one scientist whispered, "We design for perfection. They design for punishment." Another added, "Their tools are made for a world that doesn't forgive mistakes." Treya nodded. They built them for battle. For storms. For rebuilding broken cities with their bare hands. Oh, but there's no energy source, one muttered. No interface, no sensors. That's the point, she said. Nothing to break. Just metal and willpower. They stared at her. Then the head scientist gave an order. Bring me the archive files. I want every historical scan of human equipment from the Earth Wars. I want to know where this design comes from. Treya stepped back. She didn't like the way they were acting now. Too curious, too hungry. When she left the room, 2 security drones followed her. She went back to her bunk and locked the door. Her heart beat faster. They weren't just studying her tool anymore. They were studying humans. That night, Jack found her outside the camp, sitting near the forge. "You okay?" he asked. "They ran tests on the wrench," she said softly. "It didn't break, not even a little." He smiled. "Told you." "No," she said. "You don't understand. They're not impressed. They're afraid. And they're starting to dig." Jack sat beside her. The firelight danced on his face. "They'll find out soon enough," he said. "Find out what?" He looked into the flames. That human tools were made by people who had nothing left, who were crushed by war, storms, hunger. And yet, we always stood up again. So we built things that could stand with us. Things that could survive when everything else failed. She stayed quiet. "You ever wonder," he said, "why our tools look ugly?" She glanced at the hammer beside her. Thick handle, blackened. Head, scratches everywhere. "Yes, because every mark on them tells a story," Jack said. "Of a fight. Of someone who didn't give up." Treya looked down at her hands still, burned and sore from forging. Maybe that's why she liked these tools. They were like her, not perfect, but still standing. Suddenly, her device buzzed. A message from the science division. Return to the lab immediately. "We found something. It's disturbing." Jack saw her face change. "What is it?" "They found something in the human design," she said. He frowned. "What kind of something?" She stood slowly. "I don't know. Die. Think it's from the past. From a time your people don't talk about anymore." Jack stood too. He didn't smile this time. He looked toward the sky and whispered, "Then they're about to learn what happens when you push too hard against something that was built to never break." The alien girl trains in secret. The warning lights blinked red above the lab doors. Inside, a cold silence spread across the room. Treya stood in the back, arms crossed, her eyes locked on the screen. The scientists weren't speaking anymore. They only stared at the image displayed before them. It was a blueprint, a human tool, a hammer. To be exact, simple and blunt, but the scan showed something unexpected. Buried deep in the handle was a faded symbol, not from Earth, not from any modern human nation. It was from the Terran War era, a forgotten time, the time of old Earth. This symbol, the head scientist whispered, it matches records from the early Terran rebellion. This tool, it's not just a design. It's a weapon. The word weapon echoed in the cold room. Treya stepped forward. It's just a tool, a hammer. The old woman looked at her with hard eyes. No. This kind of hammer was used in resistance units. They weren't allowed real weapons, so they turned tools into weapons. Another scientist spoke, his voice shaky. If this tool survived, it means humans didn't just build it to work. They built it to fight. Treya didn't respond. She already knew that she had seen Jack hold that same hammer with the kind of grip that meant he could use it on more than just metal. That night, she didn't go back to her bunk. She went to the forge and began training. She didn't want to just understand the tools anymore. She wanted to become the kind of person who could use them, like Jack, like the humans from old Earth. She started with her grip. Jack showed her how to hold the hammer low on the handle for power, near the top for control. Then he showed her how to swing. Don't just use your arms, he said. Use your whole body. Let the weight do the work. The first swing nearly made her fall forward. Oh, she laughed. He laughed too, but then she kept going. Day by day, her swings got smoother, faster, harder. The sparks flew higher. The steel bent faster. Each time she shaped a tool, it felt like she was shaping herself. Jack handed her a heavy bar one afternoon. We're going to make a claw wrench, a real one, not for display, for real work. She nodded and started heating the metal. The forge roared. The flames turned white-hot. The steel glowed. She struck. Once, twice, 10 times, 10 times, 50. Her arms screamed. Her shoulders burned. Her gloves tore. But she kept going. Jack watched from the side, nodding slowly. You're not bad, he said. For an alien, she smirked. You're not bad for a primitive. They laughed. It was a quiet moment, but it didn't last long. 3 nights later, Treya's bunk was searched. The guards didn't hide it. They tore open drawers, flipped her mattress, scanned her data pads. They found nothing, but they left a message. We are watching you, T. Raya didn't tell Jack. She just worked harder. She forged in secret. Late nights, early mornings. She practiced swings in the shadows behind the camp. She learned balance, timing, control, and when she looked at her hands, she didn't see soft skin anymore. She saw CALLUSES. Scars, signs of someone who didn't give up. Signs of someone human-like. One day, she asked Jack, "Did your people ever break?" During the wars, he looked at the fire for a long time. Then he answered, "Yeah, we broke. Again and again. So how did you survive?" He lifted the hammer and set it gently on the bench. By getting back up and building something stronger each time. Treya stared at him, not at his muscles, not at his tools, but at the fire in his eyes. She understood now. The strength wasn't in the steel, it was in the will behind it. That night, she finished her first fully forged human-style tool alone. A double-headed wrench, thick and solid, with her name stamped into the side. She held it in her hands. It was heavy, it was ugly, it was hers, and it was strong. The next morning, she walked into the engineering bay with her new tools strapped to her hip. She didn't say a word. The other aliens looked at it, whispered, pointed, but no one laughed. Not anymore. Treya went to a damaged cargo unit. Engineers had been trying to fix it for days with high-tech gear. Nothing worked. She stepped up and said, "Let me try." They moved aside. She knelt down, gripped her forged wrench, and turned with one strong twist. The broken seal cracked free. Gasps echoed behind her. Then cheers. She didn't smile. She just stood up and walked away. That evening, Jack found her sitting near the forge again. She was cleaning the handle of her wrench. "Word's spreading," he said. "They're calling you the alien smith now." She shrugged. "Let them talk." He nodded, then sat beside her. He pulled out something from a cloth bag. A small, beaten-up old pin. It showed a crossed hammer and wrench. "What is it?" she asked. "Symbol of the old Terran Builders Guild," he said. "Very few left." She looked at him. "Why are you giving it to me?" Jack looked into the fire. "Because you earned it." She held it gently, carefully, then placed it on her belt. For the first time, she didn't feel like an outsider. She felt like a builder, a fighter, and part of something ancient, something strong, something human. Asterisk. Human tools versus alien tech. The cargo bay was full of tension. Rows of engineers, scientists, and guards stood shoulder to shoulder, all silent, all watching. On one side of the bay stood a row of brand new alien tools, sleek, glowing, and sharp. On the other side, just two tools sat on a plain metal table, a human wrench and a hammer forged by Treya. The test was about to begin. "This is not a game," said the alien commander. His voice echoed through the room. "We are here to settle a simple question. Which tools are superior, ours or the humans?" Treya stood beside her tools, arms folded, face calm. Jack was nearby, leaning against a crate, chewing gum like he didn't care. But she knew better. His eyes were watching everything. The first test began. A block of reinforced alloy, one of the strongest metals in the galaxy, was placed on a steel bench. A top-level alien engineer stepped forward, holding a plasma cutter. It buzzed softly. In his hands, he activated it. The blade hissed. Sparks flew. 10 seconds, 20, 33rd. The cut went halfway, then stopped. The tool beeped red and powered down. Overheat warning. The engineer muttered. Next. Treya walked forward with the human wrench. She tightened it around the alloy block. The crowd snickered. How could a manual tool match alien plasma? She twisted slowly. Crack. The sound echoed like thunder. The block snapped, clean down the line. The room went quiet. A senior scientist dropped his datapad. That shouldn't be possible. Treya set the wrench down gently. Test 2 began. Extreme heat resistance. Alien tool. A grip latch insulated to 4,000 degrees. It melted after 40 seconds in the chamber. Human. Hammer, forged in fire. After 2 full minutes, it came out, glowing, but intact. Treya smiled. The alien commander didn't. His jaw clenched tighter after each test. Test 3, cold chamber. Alien tools shattered after 15 seconds. Human wrench, still fine. Test 4. Weight stress. Alien tools bent like plastic. The human hammer didn't even creak. Then came the final test. Gravity impact. A massive block was raised high above both tools and dropped. Boom. The alien tool under it flattened like paper. The human wrench only bounced. Ah. Deep silence filled the cargo bay. The commander's face was red. He turned sharply. These results don't prove anything. They prove everything, Jack said. From the back, your tools are smart. Ours are tough. Yours think. Ours fight back. Someone in the crowd muttered, "They're too simple to break." "No," Treya said, stepping forward. "They are simple, so they don't break." An older scientist turned to the commander. "Sir, I request permission to study the forging process directly. If we can learn to combine it with our tech, no." The commander snapped. "We do not copy primitives." "But sir," I said no. The room fell quiet again, but it was already too late. The engineers had seen it. The scientists had seen it. Even the guards had seen it. The human tools had won. That night, Treya returned to her bunk. The forged hammer lay beside her bed. Still warm from use, she stared at it, not because it was beautiful, but because it had proven something. It had stood against everything they threw at it, and it had survived. Like Jack said, the will to survive is stronger than any machine. Her cum unit buzzed a message. Anonymous, it read. "Meet me at Dock 60300. Come alone. I want to talk about forging." She looked at it for a long time, then replied, "I'll be there." At 3 a.m., the dock was dark and empty. Cargo containers blocked most of the view. Shadows moved with every flickering light. Treya walked slowly. Then someone stepped out. From behind a crate, it was the older scientist, the one who had spoken up. "You came," he said. "I want answers," she replied. "Why are you hiding?" He looked around, then leaned closer. "Because the commander doesn't want this knowledge spreading, but I think it's too late." She nodded. "They saw the tests." "Exactly. And soon, every outer colony will want human-style tools." He reached into his bag and pulled out something, a copy of her forged wrench. But it wasn't right. The grip was wrong. The head too light. "This isn't the same," she said. "We tried to replicate it using scans. But it lacks something. It lacks pain," she said quietly. He looked confused. "You forged this," she continued. "With burned hands, with fire, with struggle. You can't fake that. It's not just a design, it's a spirit." Oh. The old scientist sighed. "We want you to teach us." Treya stepped back. "Why me?" "Because no one else has touched both worlds," he said. "Alien knowledge and human flame." She didn't answer. She just looked down at the copied wrench. It was close, but not alive. Back in the human camp, Jack was waiting by the forge. She didn't say anything as she walked up. She picked up her hammer, lit the fire, and started heating the steel again. Jack smiled. "Looks like word is spreading." Treya looked into the fire and nodded. "This is just the beginning." The hidden history of human strength. Doors to the restricted archive hissed open with a warning chime. Treya stepped inside slowly. It was cold, dark, dusty, the kind of place only historians and high-level scientists were allowed to enter. She wasn't supposed to be here, but the old scientist from Dock 6 had given her a passcode. No name, no reason, only 3 words. Find the truth. Rows of data crystals lined the shelves like forgotten memories. Some were cracked. Others had red warning labels classified. Do not play. Most were covered in dust. She walked slowly past the shelves until she saw a blinking light. One terminal was still active. Curious, she sat and tapped the panel. It flickered, then came to life. A menu appeared. Earth Wars Terran Forging History Post, Collapse Rebuild. Red class, unauthorized, weaponized POL. She hesitated. Then tapped Terran Forging History. A video played. At first, it was shaky. Low quality. A human man stood in a burnt-down village, holding a hammer. His clothes were torn. His face was covered in ash. Behind him were children, crying. Families building shelters out of scrap. The man looked into the camera. He said, They took everything. But we still have fire. We still have our hands. That's enough. We're not done. Then he raised the hammer and began rebuilding. No machines, no help, just fire, metal, and grit. Treya watched in silence as the next clips showed more. A mother, forging tools while her baby slept under the bench. A teenage girl welding old tank parts into farming equipment. Men and women using broken metal to make hammers, spanners, crowbars, and defending their homes with them. It wasn't just about tools, it was about survival. It was about will. She tapped into the next file. Red class, unauthorized, weaponized. PTOOSC needed a voice code. She tried her name. Access denied. She paused. Then leaned forward and whispered, "I forged it." The screen blinked. Access granted. A single file played. This time, the footage showed a battlefield. Not ships, not lasers, just a ruined city street. Human soldiers in broken armor. No guns, only wrenches, axes made from pipes, blades cut from shovels. A squad of aliens advanced strong. Armored, high-tech. But they were stopped by humans with nothing left to lose. Araya covered her mouth as she watched a small human boy, maybe 15, swing a heavy forged wrench into an enemy mech's leg joint. It cracked open. The mech collapsed. That same boy stood over the machine, bruised, bloody, and still swinging. They called it a tool, the voiceover said, but it was a weapon of willpower. Suddenly, the screen went dark. A warning flashed. Unauthorized user detected logging. Tracing. Treya stood quickly. Too late. The doors behind her slammed open. A security drone floated in. "You are not cleared to be here," it said. "I'm leaving," she said quickly. "No harm done." It aimed a light at her. "Report to your supervisor." Now, Treya took one last glance at the still warm terminal, then turned and walked out. The drone hovering behind her. Outside, the sky was turning dark. Storm clouds rolled over the desert. Dust swirled. Treya hurried toward the forge. Jack was already there, covering the tools from the coming wind. "You've been gone?" he said. "I saw something," she replied. "About your people." He paused. "In the archive," she nodded. Then, "You saw what we became," he said softly. "Not just toolmakers. Survivors," she said. "Fighters." Jack didn't look at her. "Atah!" He stared into the storm. "That's why they're afraid," he said. "Atah, of the tools." "But of what they mean." Treya lowered her head. "They've started locking records. They don't want others to know." He handed her a cloth. "Then you tell them, not with words, with fire." That night, as the storm howled, Treya lit the forge again. This time she didn't shape a wrench. She shaped something else. A blade, not a weapon, but a symbol. Thick steel, flat edge. The kind workers used to cut cables and pry open damaged hulls. Heavy and simple, at the base she stamped 3 marks: a human hammer, an alien star, and her name. Jack watched from the doorway. "You know what you're doing?" he asked. "No," she said, "but I know why I'm doing it." By morning, the tool was ready. She placed it on a public bench in the center of camp. No note, no explanation, but everyone saw it. Engineers stopped, touched the handle. Guards walked past and stared. Scientists took pictures. A tool forged by hand, made by fire, unbreakable, and now everyone knew who had made it. Treya didn't hide anymore. She didn't need to, because she had seen the truth. Human. Tools weren't just metal. They were memory, pain, fire, and will. Asterisk. The galaxy's strongest tools. The distress call echoed across space like a cry in the dark. A Zaraki cargo ship, massive. Important, was losing power near the rings of Gorin 3. Engines offline. Gravity spinning. Tools failing. lives at risk. The message came in broken pieces. Tech systems, down equipment, melting structural. Damage our tools are snapping pleas. Anyone help. No one answered, no one wanted to go near a dying ship. Except one. Treya stood. Aboard a small human transport vessel, eyes fixed on the distant blinking signal. Beside her, Jack was strapping on his tool belt. "You sure about this?" he asked. She nodded. "They won't make it without us." He gave her a proud smile. "Let's show them what real tools can do." They landed on the outer hull of the crippled cargo ship. The place was a wreck, panels torn open, pipes spraying steam, drones offline, sparks rained from broken walls. Several alien engineers sat hopelessly on the floor, their high-tech tools twisted and shattered in their hands. One of them spotted Treya and stood up fast. You came. You brought help." She held up her forged hammer. "We brought tools." They stared at her. And then at Jack. And then at the metal crates. Behind them, no machines. One alien muttered, "You're going to fix this manually." Jack opened the first crate. Inside, pure, simple, powerful tools. Wrenches, hammers, spanners. Each one hand-forged. Each one tested by fire and pain. He tossed a heavy crowbar to Treya. "Let's get to work." They moved like a storm through the broken ship. Treya pried open a sealed hatch that had jammed days ago. Clank, snap, whoosh. Air flowed again. Jack pounded out a twisted support beam and straightened it with raw strength. Together, they replaced melted wire channels using old-fashioned grips and a blowtorch. The alien engineers followed them, unsure at first, but then amazed. "Your tools don't break," one whispered. "They're not smart," another said, watching Jack swing a sledge. "But they never give up." "That's the idea." Jack grinned. Treya led a team deep into the engine room. A coolant pipe had burst, flooding the chamber with freezing vapor. Alien tools had frozen on contact. She walked in wearing nothing but goggles and gloves, her steel cutter in hand. Sparks flew. Ice cracked. Metal screamed, but the pipe opened. She turned the valve. The engine core hummed back to life. Cheers echoed behind her an hour later. The commander of the ship met them in the control room. He was older, thin. His uniform was soaked with sweat and coolant. "You saved this ship," he said quietly. "No," Treya replied. "The tools did." He looked down at the hammer on her belt. "Your kind used to laugh at human equipment." "We were wrong," she said. "They weren't weak, just built different." He nodded. "What do you call that design?" Treya looked at Jack, then back at the commander. "We call it made to survive." The story spread across the stars. At first, only whispers, then news broadcasts, then orders. Every outpost, every ship, every colony wanted human-forged tools, not the shiny ones, not the smart ones, the strong ones, the kind that didn't break, the kind made by hand. Alien leaders tried to deny it, but they couldn't hide the truth anymore. Human tools were the strongest in the galaxy. Months passed. Treya became something more than a technician. She became a symbol. Her image suit-covered face, hammer in hand, was displayed across stations and colonies. Alien children learned forging techniques. In school, human workers were called in to teach. Even the old scientist who once doubted her now forged beside her. And Jack? He opened a forge school with her. They named it the Iron Flame. Because even when the galaxy turns cold, Jack said, "This fire keeps burning." One evening, as the stars glittered outside the workshop window, Treya sat beside the forge. She picked up the first tool she had ever made, a simple wrench. Now, old and scarred, She smiled. Jack sat beside her, handing her a cup of strong earth tea. Do you remember, he asked, what you said when you first saw human tools? She laughed. I said they looked like junk, and now? She looked at her hands, strong, scarred, proud. I was wrong. Jack raised his mug. To the ones who never break. She raised hers too. To the ones who get stronger every time they're hit. Final shot, the camera pans out. Past the forge dot, past the school, past the planet, out into space, and there, on dozens of worlds. Sparks fly, steel glows, and across every forge. One symbol is stamped on every new tool. A hammer, a star, and a name. T single quotes are EYA. The alien girl who asked a question and changed the galaxy forever.